What I'm about to tell you is probably the most disturbing historical mystery you've ever heard. Because this story isn't limited to just a few cities, it exhibits a systematic pattern worldwide. And the most frightening part is that all this evidence was hastily destroyed, covered up, and erased from official historical records immediately after being discovered. In 1901, after that terrible fire that burned down and destroyed the city of Jacksonville, during excavations to rebuild the city, workers encountered something very strange. Underground, they discovered highly advanced engineering shafts officially labeled as storm drainage or natural air voids, but bearing no resemblance to typical drainage structures. And the strange thing is, none of these structures had any counterpart in the city plans or construction records of that period, as if someone had left these giant engineering works there and everyone had forgotten or had been made to forget. The most surprising feature of these shafts was that they weren't just simple holes. Remnants were found indicating that some of them contained mechanical louvers, adjustable covers, and complex mechanisms that could regulate airflow, meaning these weren't randomly dug natural formations, but carefully designed systems serving a specific purpose. And we must ask ourselves, in the early 19th century, or perhaps even earlier, who could have built such a sophisticated ventilation system, and why was it necessary to completely hide its existence? But Jacksonville is just the beginning, because this story extends to Seattle, San Francisco, Amsterdam, and dozens of cities around the world. In excavations conducted in Seattle in 1898 and in San Francisco after the Great Earthquake of 1906, structures referred to in official reports as giant circular stone wells were discovered. But this description didn't reflect reality because these wells had a perfect cylindrical form. The stonework was so precise and perfect that even with modern laser cutting technology, it's difficult to achieve such smooth surfaces. The walls descended vertically with millimetric tolerances, and most surprisingly, some of these structures extended far below the city's foundation layers, sometimes to depths of 20, 30, or even 40 meters, which are completely illogical depths for an ordinary drainage system. So were these just water wells? No, because they were completely different from the typical structure of water wells. At the bottom of most, instead of water, there were strange mechanical remnants, rusted metal connection parts, and sometimes entrances opening to complex pipe systems, as if these holes were designed not just for air, but as multifunctional access points to provide access to underground corridors, lower heavy machinery parts, or feed a specific underground infrastructure. Now let's go to Amsterdam, to the year 1865. The circular structures discovered during sewage modernization in the old neighborhoods of the city showed a striking similarity to those in Jacksonville and Seattle at first glance. But the Amsterdam examples provided another clue because some of these structures functioned like pressure-regulating chambers or surge tanks, meaning water here wasn't just a waste transport medium, but was being used as a kind of energy transmission mechanism. And this points us toward a completely different technological paradigm, perhaps hydraulic power systems, perhaps an energy distribution network using the kinetic energy of water. Think about it. In the mid-19th century, before electricity became widespread, could someone have built a complex energy transmission system operating on water pressure beneath cities? And if so, why did this technology disappear? Why isn't it mentioned in any engineering textbooks? Because here comes the even more disturbing part. Shortly after all these structures were discovered, they were systematically stopped, sealed, and forgotten by official authorities. The shafts found in Jacksonville were filled with concrete on the grounds of public safety. The cylindrical structures in Seattle were closed, claiming they posed a danger to building foundations. Those in San Francisco were buried with earthquake debris and never opened, and those in Amsterdam were reshaped as part of the modern sewage system, and their original forms were destroyed. Could this just be coincidence? I don't think so. Maybe in one city, maybe in two cities, but in dozens of cities worldwide, all after major fires, earthquakes, or reconstruction projects, all with the same haste, all with the same safety justifications. And why do these structures either not appear at all in official historical records or get labeled as insignificant, ordinary drainage systems? When you hear these things, you're no longer just a passive viewer. You're now a researcher, Someone skeptical of official history, wondering what's under your own city, examining old maps, searching for pre-fire or pre-earthquake photographs, perhaps trying to find forgotten engineering reports in local archives, because this isn't just about Jacksonville, Seattle, San Francisco, or Amsterdam. There are clues to the existence of similar structures in dozens of historical cities, including London, Paris, Istanbul, New York, Chicago, Boston, Rome, Madrid, and more I can't even count. All discovered during projects like modernization, sewage, metro construction, and then quickly covered up. So what does this global mystery network tell us? Perhaps the most radical theory we have is this. These breathing holes were actually just the visible part of a much larger, much more complex, probably intercontinental underground infrastructure. Perhaps this system actually worked underground. Cities were just access points. Perhaps this infrastructure belonged to a specific civilization, a civilization whose engineering knowledge might have been more advanced than today's, or at least built on different principles. A civilization that used water power, airflow, pressure, and perhaps natural phenomena like gravity and earth magnetism as energy sources. And then something happened. Perhaps a disaster, perhaps a war, perhaps a deliberate destruction. This civilization vanished. Its knowledge was erased, but its infrastructure remained. Cities were rebuilt on top of this infrastructure. People continued to use these strange holes without knowing what they were. Until in the 19th century, major fires, earthquakes, and reconstruction projects brought these structures back to light. And then someone, perhaps a powerful institution, perhaps a group controlling this knowledge, ensured these structures were forgotten again. Because if people had learned of the existence of a civilization much older and much more advanced than the official narrative of history, all history books, the entire narrative of progress, the entire story of the miracle of modern civilization would have collapsed. You might think this theory is extreme, but look at the records. The mechanical louvers in Jacksonville, the impossible symmetry in Seattle and San Francisco, the pressure regulation systems in Amsterdam, the multifunctional access points, and most importantly, the systematic closure and forgetting of all these. This isn't just conspiracy theory. These are documented facts. There are old newspaper clippings, engineering reports, workers' memoirs, and photographs and drawings recorded by some brave researchers. But none of these were ever included in the mainstream historical narrative. Why? Because they don't want to accept it. Because they can't explain these structures. Because if they do accept them, the entire timeline of history, the entire story of technological progress would have to be questioned. So what will you do now? Will you forget this and return to your daily life? Or will you start researching in your own city, your own surroundings? Find old maps, especially maps drawn before the late 1800s. Research whether there was a major fire, earthquake, or reconstruction project in your city. Go to local history archives. Examine old newspaper clippings. Look for headlines like "Strange Underground Structures Discovered." Read the memoirs of engineers or workers from that period. Perhaps they said something about these holes. And if you find something, share it. Because this isn't just your city's story. This is a global mystery, our common past, and perhaps a very important clue for our future. Because if such an infrastructure really exists and can be made functional, we could handle the energy crisis, water crisis, even climate change differently. But first, we must learn the truth. First, we must solve this global mystery network, and this is only possible with curious, skeptical, investigative minds like yours. That's why, as I end this video, I want to tell you this. You are no longer just a viewer. You are a detective of history, and you have the biggest clue in your hands. Underground breathing holes, a systematically closed, covered up, and forgotten engineering marvel worldwide. Now your mission is to rediscover this story, gather evidence, and reveal the truth. Because history isn't just a story written by winners, it's also a treasure map full of mysteries, secret knowledge, and forgotten civilizations. And a part of this map is right now beneath your feet, under meters of soil, concrete, and official history, waiting, breathing, and perhaps standing there hoping to be rediscovered one day.